4 minutes then, yeah. Yeah, I think we're fine. Okay, I think we'll start. Okay, so welcome to this breakout session on FAIR data. My name is Andy Goetz, and I see we are 13 participants. I know 3 people on here, so we'll find out more about you. Just to give you a quick overview of what we're supposed to do. I mean, I don't know if everyone has if this information was sent to everyone, but we have 3 questions which we have to answer or discuss together, and then we have to prepare a slide with the conclusions or feedback from this group, so that we can then report back to everyone else. So I thought maybe just to find out from which domains people are coming, we could just quickly go through the quick tour de table, and I'll call out your name. If you could just say briefly where you come from and who you represent. Yeah. So I can start with myself. I'm Andy Goetz, and I'm from the European Synchrotron in Grenoble, and we represent. I represent the PANOS project, which is for photon and neutron sources. Then I see there's Anka Hinola. Do you want to just say who you are?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Anka Hienola from Finnish Meteorological Institute, Finland, of course. I work in both ESFRI FAIR and EOSC Nordic.
Okay, great. Okay, then I have on my screen Carol Goebel.
Carol Goebel. Hello, I'm here from the University of Manchester, and I'm representing IBISBA, ESFRI, Elixir, and EOSC Life.
Okay, so biology, yeah.
Biology.
Yes, great. Okay, then Jan, I don't know if Jan is online or not. Jan Rusak. He's the head of the ESFRI organization, so I think we probably don't need to introduce him.
Just to show that I am present, and
Okay.
I apologize not to be able to show my picture, but my camera is broken during these many remote meetings. I'm not representing any particular research infrastructure, so I'm compensating for Carol. I am ESFRI chair, and I'm a part of the EOSC executive board, so I'm more or less an observer here.
Okay, very good. I always count on your input because you have good ideas. Okay, next one will be on my list is Mariana Glavica.
Hello, I come from Croatian Social Science Data Archive, and we are service provider for CESDA.
Okay.
So I would not say that I'm representing CESDA here, but I work in this area of social science data archiving.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Next one on my list is Lubos Halada.
Good afternoon. I am working in Institute of Landscape Ecology in Slovakia, involved in LTER, long-term ecological research infrastructure, but I am not representing it here. I am here as a national delegate in ESFRI for Slovakia.
Okay, thank you. Sophie, okay, Sophie Servant, you can present yourself.
Yes, sorry. Hi, Andy. Sophie Servant. I'm at DAISY in Hamburg, the synchrotron. So I'm also in photon and neutron science like Andy. And I represent here the EXPAND project, which is the sister project of of PANOSC, so open science for photon and neutron facilities.
And Sophie has very kindly agreed to help me with note taking. So I'm very glad to have someone competent at the helm. Yeah. Helen Clark, are you there?
Hi, I'm Helen Clark from JISC, the UK's National Research and Education Network, and I'm here representing EOSC Synergy, which is one of the regional projects, and I work on Work Package 6, which is skills and training.
Okay, thank you. Who have I still here? Jessica Klemaya.
Yes, hello. I'm Jessica Klemaya. I work together with Rupert Luck from EMBL on the executive board EOSC activities, but of course also for EMBL, open science is a big topic, so I'm very interested in the discussion here.
Okay, thank you. Then I have Marta Marin.
Hello, I am National Coordinator for ESFRI Spain, the European Infrastructure on Translation and Medicine.
Okay, thank you. Ohad Graba-Soudri.
Yeah, good afternoon. Ohad Graba-Soudri. I'm the director of Ex Officio, which is a legal consultancy working quite a lot with research infrastructures and with the science community at large. We are currently commissioned to prepare a study on legal interoperability within the context of EOSC and the implementation of the FAIR principles, a study commissioned by the EOSC Secretariat.
I think I've heard about that. Where are you based?
Lund, Sweden.
Lund, okay, yes, I'd heard about that. Okay, thank you. We need some legal advice. Then we have Pirjo Kontkanen.
Okay, I'm from the University of Helsinki. I'm also legal counsel. I know Ohad very well. So I could say that at this meeting, I informed I'm representing ICOS ERIC, Actris, and Elter, and EOS Nordic.
Okay.
I work for all of them.
Very good. And I still have Carmela Acero.
Hello, I work for FIS Center in Brussels, and I am the project manager of the EOSC project, which is in charge of the further development of the EOS portal.
Okay, yes, I remember you. We've met, and then the last is Karl Presser.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm from Premotech in Winterthur in Switzerland, and I'm involved in the Metro Food Research Infrastructure and in the ESFRI Cloud, which is the food and nutrition security cloud of EOSC thematic cloud.
Oh, okay. Well, I think this is very exciting because definitely the most varied set of representatives I've had. So we have a very broad range here, I think. What I could just present to you, I think because the time, of course, is going to go fast and we won't be able to go into too long discussions, I propose we go into the questions straight away. So the way I'll do that is I just share my screen or share at least this application here. Can you see that? You see this is the Google Doc, which Sophie has very kindly set up. Your name's already appearing there. And the first, and the three questions we have are, is your RI aligned with fair and reproducible principles? If so, how or how not? So we're trying to look, I think the idea is to look how much, let's see, how are things aligned? Are people more biased or really actively working towards fair, or are there things which are preventing them from doing that at the moment? The second question is, do your RIs have policies for fair and reproducible data services and corresponding incentives for researchers? the third question is, in your opinion, are fair and reproducible data services considered a priority by funding agencies and policymakers? And I have, if there's time, I've added my own question is, because the funders are coming, let's say, from a more of a top-down approach, I've added my own question, which is from the bottom up, how do your community see this? Because we also have feedback from our communities, which we could share with you. So we have until 4:15. I would suggest that we start already, and that you already. So I think, Sophie, I don't know how you did this, but everyone seems to have the link, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I just shared it in the chat because Carol asked, and I think it's a good idea because for people to be able to correct what I wrote.
Yeah, so this is excellent. So we already have, I think Carol could already maybe give us some comments on how they're doing this, and if this has been I mean, is this something which is now completely accepted or not?
Well, Elixir is predicated on FAIR. So it's about the FAIR data, and IBISBA and its sister projects in the ESFRIs, the cluster projects in EOSC are also, the whole cluster is built around building a FAIR collaboratory for interchange between these research infrastructures. So it's at the very heart. And a number of the people who lead these research infrastructures, myself included, were the original authors of the FAIR Principles paper. So it would be extremely strange if we didn't. We actually also have a FAIR kind of statement that I'll dig out the link to it.
Okay. Well, that of course made it easier because you came, I mean, you were already set up to be fair, yeah.
We were already set up to be fair.
Okay. Then I see and just the question, is this sort of, is it easy in the domain of biology to be fair, or is it because it's considered like biology something which is good for, necessary to keep people in good health and so on?
No, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. Okay.
It's just as hard as everybody else. It's just that we were ahead of the curve a bit, perhaps in the word. Remember, people like Bar and Mons were also part of Elixir, so so we were a little bit ahead of the curve. We have a track record of sharing, of course, for a long time. The human but no, it's just as I think Camilla is also joining in.
Could you mute maybe, or we can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Camilla?
Could you please mute? I can't see you speaking at the moment.
I'm muted here. Apologies.
Andy, just a technical thing. You should be able to mute everybody. So if you just go to the participants icon, you should be able to mute whomever you wish.
Okay, let me do that. So
I did it.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Oof. Fine. So then we have here ESFRI FAIR is aiming exactly at FAIR. I like that statement also because we also in the panels can expand. We're aiming at FAIR, but we're working towards it. And so we couldn't say, let's say our principles and our policies are fair, but we're still not there, and we're only coming towards it. Is this the same for ESFRI FAIR, or is ESFRI FAIR already fair? Anka?
We are not yet very fair, but as I said, we are working for this, and that was one of the reasons the ESFRI FAIR was formed, right? One of the clusters. Yeah, it's a long work, and if one has to cover all the environmental research infrastructures, then it's complicated. Because we have still different levels of maturity and so on. So.
And would you quickly say one which is, or any of the acronyms, let's say any of the concepts of the F, A, I, and R more difficult?
Probably the interoperability is the problem.
Right.
It's not probably, definitely the interoperability is the problem.
Okay, and just a question about the R. Is this something you have a handle on? How much data is going to be reused in your community? Because I think, I mean, in climate research, I have the feeling that everyone, you have to use all the data almost. Yeah.
That's a tough question. I am not able now to answer you.
Because I can just say that from the photon world, seen as we only becoming fair at the moment. I mean, EOSC is for us an opportunity to become fair. The R is sort of varying. So, I mean, it's a number which is not very well known in the sense that we don't have much data on it. But the data we do have over the years is between 1% and in a very special case, 15%. So it's not a, it's still a modest number, I would say, but it's not zero, yeah.
I think it's easier if one is talking about modeling that's reproducible to some extent. But if one has measurements, you cannot reproduce what you measured yesterday.
Yeah.
They are unique. Of course, you can measure today, but that would be a different set.
Yeah, especially, well, for environment data, yeah.
Yes.
It's unique in time.
So
it will be reused if it's needed. Yeah. I see we have a hand raised by Pirio. You want to say something, Pirio?
Yeah, just pointing out from ICOS perspective. So ICOS has a data policy, but it was done years ago, and it doesn't obviously have FAIR principles, but they are following and trying to aim at it. Actris has in its data policy FAIR principles acknowledged. I think, I don't know if we have EPOS here, they have also tried to, so all these, I think some of the environmental research infrastructures, they are favoring these FAIR principles. But when we come to the practical solutions, and of course Elixir is still building up all these processes, but of course they are aiming at these principles. But then when putting them in practice, so interoperability and reusability, I think, so you can merit FAIR, you can get it access, but interoperability and reusability, they may be the something challenges. Yeah.
Just a question to you, or maybe also to others. We in our community, it's similar. We had developed a data policy in 2010, which was in over the between 2010 and 2015 was used as a basis for data policies. And then FAIR came along, the FAIR paper came along, and this acronym. And it sounds like you had a similar situation. Your policy was inspired by the same objectives, but was written before the paper, before this word was used. Yeah.
Yeah, but ICOS has no problem with FAIR because from the beginning in ICOS, it was built up with open access, and the work done in ICOS ERIC is all the time to be more available for anyone. So that's not a problem there because it's not such a complicated data resource, I would say. But when we come to these more complicated infrastructures like, let's say, Actris or Elixir, where the data is coming from different sources, or for example, EPOS. So you cannot harmonize everything in one day. You need time. Yeah.
But I was wondering, because I see Helen has written something as well about policy alignment for FAIR. Is there a general move as part of EOSC to update data policies to include, you know, in a very clear manner, expressly, the FAIR concepts? Because we did this exercise and we noticed that there are changes, because FAIR has been analyzed to such a deep extent now that compared to our understanding in 2010, things did change. I don't know, Helen, do you want to say something, or?
I can't really say too much, I'm afraid. You might have seen my note, I've been put in the wrong room. but I just know my colleagues in Work Package 5 that working on policy, it's a key part of what they're looking at. So Dale Robertson is attending this event, so he's probably in a different group.
Yeah, I know that. Okay. Then let's see. So I think, I mean, they are, what's interesting, let's maybe go to the other side. They know no responses. I would put us, I don't know how you see it, Sophie, but I would put us still in the in progress part. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I would also.
Yeah. To be honest. Okay, yeah, I think whoever's Anonymous Grizzly has hit the nail on the head there, because I think, I mean, EOSC is definitely an opportunity to become FAIR.
I just wanted to raise the point, Andy, and I put me in yes, and Elixir is very much driving in this. We're not FAIR yet. And can I remind us that FAIR means machine actionable metadata that's available for automated processing. It's not a fuzzy concept of, oh, I got some things that you can just open. So I think one of the things that it has to be quite clear, it actually has very strict meaning. And actually, there are very, very few data sets that adhere to the meaning. And there are very, very few in Elixir that actually can be, are actually FAIR as indicated in the paper and by the RDA FAIR indicators.
Yes, no, I fully agree with that statement. And I think we still see FAIR as, at least if you go to the FAIR, what was it? We used the data maturity model. This was definitely, in a way, an eye-opener to see. It's like a kind of gold standard that we're aiming at, but we're not there yet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I think we should ask about fair enough. Who's trying to be fair enough rather than fair perfect?
But what we can say is that every represented here has been working towards FAIR, and some for a long time. So this is already something.
Yeah, this is, and I think, I mean, I also am very much an optimist. I think, considering where most of us are coming from, we've already made a lot of progress. You know, if you think, take it, turn the clock back 10 or 20 years, you know, we're coming from an area where this wasn't considered, at least in our community, this was considered as private data belonging to individuals. Yeah. Now this is really, there is a change in the way people see things and the way the way we also present things for them. Yeah. Okay, so I see, I'm watching the clock. So yes, do your RIs have policies for fair and reproducible data services and corresponding incentives for researchers? That's a good one, yeah. Does anyone have does anyone have incentives for researchers?
I think everyone is trying to find out these incentives, but the main incentive is, I think, in these RIs I'm working with, is to be acknowledged as a data provider. That's the incentive, to provide your data. And that's why you try to use licenses where you have statement that the original data provider is acknowledged.
Are we, a question just for people who are in this field, the license under which you make your data available, is everyone aligning with the Creative Commons licenses, or are there other trends? I mean, we are using CC BY, and there's some requests to also even have CC BY NC in certain cases. Yeah.
The aim is to use CC BY 4.0 because it includes the database. So BY there, but of course some infrastructures, they need to take into account individual party demands like Actris or EPOS, I would say. So knowing these environmental more, but the aim is, I think, at the moment in the environmental field to use CC BY 4.0.
Okay, this is our case as well. Is anyone using CC0?
That's discussed for metadata, I think, but for metadata, it's difficult to have different licenses for different situations. So that may be discussed for metadata, but for us, no. I know the difference, yes.
Metadata, okay. I mean, personally, I think in science, CC0 should, I mean, this is my personal feeling, should be enough, because you shouldn't be allowed to publish in a journal without specifying where the data comes from. So you would be obliged just to say what you're basing your results on, give credit. Yeah. But I think we're still in a situation of moving towards this. So people, CC BY reassures people. Yeah. Okay. Could one say we get this? I see this happening, and we also have started a campaign we've contacted many journals. Could one say the fact that journals request access to the data, so is that an incentive for FAIR? Has anyone got any examples where they think this has been? I mean, we have users, let's say scientists, who take data in our facilities, and then they have to publish in certain journals. They have to provide a DOI to the data. Yeah.
Well, if I may, so I would not say that we have some experiences, but we see that as a strong motivation for researchers, strong push for researchers to have journals motivating them to push to publish their data, or at least to talk about reproducibility and importance of it, because journals actually have really strong position in researchers community. So inside CESDA, for instance, we are also working on one project called Journals Outreach, and we are trying to reach out to journals and to present them with our services, and also to start talking about that and to see how our services can be of help to them, because we are archiving data and publishing data.
Yeah. No, I think this is, for me, this is something where we help scientists when they want to publish by providing this service. Yeah. Okay. So then if we go to question 3, and then we can come back if you have time. In your opinion, are fair and reproducible data services considered a priority by funding agencies and policymakers? So what is the outlook for the future? I see no one. I mean, my understanding, and I've recently seen a thesis on this as well, is the FAIR movement is being more driven by policymakers and funders and politicians and the community like the EC than by scientific communities themselves. And I think there is a danger that this is something which will be perceived as being thrust upon them from the top. Yeah. We should help. I mean, we should also be showing, either through training or through examples, showing people the added value of making the data fair, at least from a scientific point of view, and the scientific, let's say, the philosophy of science, or the way we do science. Yeah. I don't know if people here from the national facilities or representing national agencies, do they insist on FAIR yet or not? So not in Croatia, not in Czech Republic.
Well, I totally agree that if FAIR is something that is valued and should be facilitated, we need the funding agencies to acknowledge in their, let's say, grant conditions that you make your data available openly on fair conditions or whatever. So, but this is a tricky question, because funding agencies also need to secure the results so that they can be protected. So they need to be careful here, because they also, like EU, they want to protect results so that there can be innovations, protecting patents and so on. But yes, if we want to make FAIR more available, it should be included in the funding organizations' conditions somehow.
Well, I think, I mean, I'm a fan of FAIR, so I would agree. But at the same time, I think there's a dilemma here, because FAIR, you know, if you say to someone like we have in the Horizon 2020 proposals and grant agreements, publications have to be open and have to be green or gold access. That's something which is very clear, very simple to understand and to check. But how would you check if data is fair? If you, I mean, we've been going into this since the beginning of the project in more detail. There's so many recommendations and so many, there's no one easy way of determining if something is fair.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. And I think that's the problem why funding agencies would have it difficult. It's easy to make it as a policy. So let's accept that this is the aim. But when you want detailed regulations, it's more difficult.
Yeah, if you want to, if I have a review and they say, is your data fair? How will they check that?
Sorry.
If I may add something to this, because yes, we are in this, so we are the data archive. So one of the ways, at least for disciplines that have such kind of infrastructures, and social sciences for sure have, is to, the way to check is if the data are archived in a certified data archive, because through that process of certification, we make sure that data are aiming to be fair and that data are checked properly, and in the case of social sciences that they are also anonymized and that they are findable, accessible. We do this metadata profiles also for data, so we try to make them interoperable, and we develop thesauruses and central catalogs. So we are basically all about making data fair.
But which, that's interesting, because which certification process do you use?
So the basic certification, which is obligatory for all service providers in CESDA, is Core Trust Seal.
Yeah,
So
this is the one. Yeah. We also
this is the basic
that,
one, and some archive which are older archive and bigger archive, for instance, UK Data Archive, they have some ISO certifications. I don't know the exact name, but there are other certifications that can be put in place.
Okay.
So then we cover all these organizational issues, and we also cover data management issues, the digital object management issues, I would say, and also some technical issues in that process.
Okay.
Can I ask?
There was a comment from Jan, or from who was it? No, someone.
Yeah, I just it's Ohad Graber-Sudri. I wanted to just to add to the discussion that I think just to say that I think we all know probably, but just to highlight this, that FAIR is not necessarily open. So the data can be closed. It can be subject to embargo, or if there's IP that needs to be protected, it's okay to have the data closed. It can still be fair, and therefore the focus should be on the metadata in that case, on how the to make the data discoverable, to have the information, and maybe to make it, and that you could do, for example, funding agencies can require data management plans, for example, to harmonize them, and to have those FAIR principles a bit more standardized, the metadata description a bit more standardized, so it's easy to identify all the important information, including restrictions on access to the data, in a way which will be interoperable with other sets of data from other sources. So I think that that makes it also different from open data, and that's a point I think is important to bear in mind when we talk about incentives or whether the FAIR principles are required by funding agencies. I think the European Commission actually issued a guidance on how to describe FAIR data, and is available from 2006 or 16 or 17 or something like that.
Yeah.
I would just second that, because I didn't mention that, because this is also with the CESDA is also actually dealing with lots of data that are not open, because they are sensitive. They are collected by service, and you have also qualitative data, and you have personal stories and things like that. And we often deal with sensitive data, so the data itself are not openly available, but the metadata are openly licensed by CC0 license, etc. So I would just like to second that comment that was made previously.
No, that's I fully. I mean, these are all valid statements, but I think we all know it's complicated to. I mean, it's not a binary process. It is a spectrum. And so if I take our case, we are going through the Core Trust Seal certification. We have data in our data repository, which I'm sure probably no one else could understand than the people who will reuse and the people who generated. Let's say we have some data like that. We have other data which could be reused, and we have things in between. So it's not just. It's not as simple as just trying to put it in a good repository on that, because the quantities and the number of sources that are providing data are very varied. Yeah, it's just my feeling. Yeah. Okay. One thing I was wondering also. One thing I see as a possibility in the future. I don't know. I mean, if I'm looking further in the future now, is there a possibility that we end up with sort of a phenomenon where the quantities of data are so huge that people start using commercial, let's say, free services like Google or Facebook to store their data, and because the national or the government-funded repositories are not up to that level. Do you see that happening in your domain, or I'm thinking now, we have an example recently of the Zuckerberg Foundation wanting to take data and put it in their databases. Yeah.
Yeah,
No
that would for sure not happen in social sciences, but for other fields, I just cannot speak. For social sciences, this is we have this privacy laws, and so this is basically not possible to.
Okay, yeah. But this is where I think also the policymakers and funding agencies can insist on the rules. Yeah. Okay. What about you people? I mean, how is your scientific community taking this up? Yeah. So Jan is saying this is awareness is very low. Yeah. So I think they're responding. So in some cases, Anka says yes. We are still in the process, at least in the photon world, and there's still maybe a lot of older scientists who are not convinced yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually, that one of the things we've done in one of our projects to do, which we're partnering with FAIR and drug companies, is what are the actual incentives for doing this? And there has to be a business case from the point of view of FAIR, because there'll be plenty of particularly retrospective data sets, you know, where it's a lot of, well, there's a data set where you want to make it fair, but it's so expensive to do it. What's the value proposition? So you have to, just making everything universally fair doesn't make any economic sense.
Yeah, and this is also, we had a feedback last week or 2 weeks ago from directors of large institutes who were, the institutes are subscribed to the concepts of FAIR, but after 5 years of doing this, they say, well, what have we gained? You know, we've only had, they see the cost, but they don't see the benefit yet. Yeah? And I'm wondering how much, at what point will people start saying, at least funders or people who are, let's say, decision makers say, this is definitely something we have to do, or is there danger that at one point this will suddenly just become too expensive? People say we've put in all this effort and we haven't gained anything, or not enough.
I think this discussions goes on 2 levels. First, scientists themselves, are they able to adapt to this? Are they ready to go for this? I think there's a difference from my experience with scientists, with young scientists and older scientists. This has been pointed out. But then there's also the level of the organization, because resources are needed. If this is to be implemented, what's the incentive for an organization to have a setup for all these services, to provide fair access? So there are 2 angles, I think.
Would it be possible to get back to this incentive idea? I have noticed that Elixir has strong incentives, they are saying here, and they worked on credit for researchers and so on. Can anybody maybe talk about this a little bit more?
Yeah, well, we have, so the Elixir has a whole bunch of data sets. It's not one sort of few collection of data sets that we all work together in order to be able to produce them. It's, we have hundreds and hundreds of data sets. So what we do have is core data resources, which is core data resources that have been selected through quite a rigorous program of choice of analysis, which includes FAIR principles, but doesn't just depend upon FAIR principles. It also does things like the business case that I mentioned before for a data set, in order to be able to get a credit as a core data resource. And if you get a core data resource, then you have high incentives to make that high quality, FAIR, if you will, because then you get special kind of support and are cherished more. And also in the management of the content of that data, there's a lot of work on provenance, on attributing the quality, the actual who created the data in the data set, that they get credit for that. And that credit transfers through the papers as well. So we've got a whole stream of work looking at tracking where data is used by researchers and then being able to propagate the credit for that. So because otherwise you're asking people to do very elaborate and quite time-consuming metadata creation, but you have no way of getting them to have any kind of credit when it's used by other people. So that's what we mean in Elixir. But this, of course, is very uneven. Is it Anka who asked the question? It's very uneven because for our big data sets, we put this investment in, like UniProt and Interpro and so on. But then we have hundreds of boutique data sets, if you will, where you want to have infrastructure that comes off the shelf that enables people to do this. And I can't say truthfully that we're there for that.
But this, I think, this could be some advice also to people to say, don't try and treat all data equally.
Yeah, exactly, Andy. That's a really key point, that we don't treat all data equally. Some data is more equal than others. So we are kind of trying to develop in one of our projects a maturity framework rather than a model, let's say, because we expect to have a landscape of FAIR. Some databases will be more FAIR than others. Some we will not migrate to being fully FAIR because there isn't the business case for it. Others there is. So and it's more to do with making it clear when you're trying to use them. We try to solve the findability issue. So we have a mechanism called bioschemas, which tries to solve the findability issue. But from the interoperability issue, we do interoperability on demand or for a purpose. There has to be a reason to do the interoperability before you do that piece.
Okay, it makes, I mean, it's based on common sense or good sense. Yeah, it sounds very good.
Well, I don't know if it's good sense, but it's feasible. Otherwise, it's not feasible.
Well, pragmatic. Just a question about the tools you said you use. Are you using like tools that are commonly available, like Altmetrics or that, or have you developed your own tools?
They're developed. So for the things to do with digging into citation work, there's a whole stream of work actually that's being done, and of course they work in partnership with the Altmetrics people, but it's actually quite bespoke work, I would say.
Okay.
Because it's looking into the papers to spot the identifiers of data sets and things like this.
So we also we're working on our own tools also because some of the stuff we have to dig into the text of articles to find them.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a whole stream of text mining articles. Yeah, and as you know, that tends to, in the end, be quite discipline specific.
Yeah, you need to guide it a lot.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we're coming to the end. I must admit, I've been very fortunate to moderate this because there's a lot of input here, which I will be on. More people have provided input than have been able to speak. Does anyone want to still raise an issue before we wrap up? Maybe I could have just a question to Jan, because I see this on my screen now. Jan, one thing, because we work with Eli as well, is we sometimes have the feeling that the national data policies are not aligned yet with the EOS data objectives. Is this going to be, is this evolving, or do you think there will be this divide for a long time?
Do you want a politically correct or a true answer?
The true answer.
No, I mean, I'm joking, but just a little bit. I just wrote that in Czech we have a quite well developed performance-based funding system. So it's tracked, can be tracked back to individual researcher, and in a hierarchical form, the budget of a research performing organization is constructed from the contributions of individuals. And in that sense, and I wrote that data sets is not considered yet as a result, and this comes with difficulties. And the difficulties are essentially caused in the discussion how to evaluate the quality of the data set. It's not only fairness itself, but you can imagine that if you have such a very, let's say, technical funding system, it can be subject of gaming, and you shall be well aware of that, and you have to introduce measures against that. And this means you have to very well understand the system you're evaluating. And this is simply not the case yet for data sets.
Yeah, oh, I think that's a very good comment. I think with this sort of also says a lot for the work that remains to be done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I will, because we're having 2 wrap-ups now, I will work on some conclusions based on your input. I wanted to thank everyone for the input. Thanks, Sophie, and see you back in the main session unless there's any questions or comments. Though.
Please wait in this room and you will be moved to the main session.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.